The next challenge and tip is you have all this knowledge in your head. How in God's name are you going to transfer all this knowledge that you've accrued in 10 to 20 years to someone who knows nothing? And how are you going to do this? Well, the way you do this is the way that I did this with my work at home agents, and that is that I gave them a playbook. Now, one thing I want to point out is, you may have them do cold calling, appointment setting, following up on leads, whatever. But let me show you a sales process that we kind of use for a typical sales, really regardless of what you sell. We think there's an initial contact, and that's where you reach out to someone. You might pre-qualify them, but this could be a cold call, an email, you meet someone at an event. It's a brief conversation, 2 to 5 minutes, and that typically leads to an appointment. So this would be a longer conversation, face-to-face meeting for coffee, over the phone, longer phone conversation, and that's where you might have a more detailed conversation. And then a third step might be a presentation. This is where you do a demo, deliver a proposal, go through pricing, whatnot. So those are 3 steps that I think most B2B, especially B2B people go through. And you could combine those. The first top 2 might combine, or the bottom 2 might combine, or you could do them all at one time. But those are 3 steps that I think you go through. And the reason why I show you this is because step 1 you can do with not a ton of knowledge transfer. And I learned this with my work at home agents, which is this is all they did. They never went beyond the first step. So they were primarily focused on setting appointments for our clients, really. Now, you may get to a point where you have a virtual sales assistant that also handles appointments for you. I mean, who knows? It could grow into something, bigger. But the learning curve between step 1 and step 2 is very big, meaning I could spend a little bit of time with someone and they can do step 1 competently, and I'll show you how. But to do step 2, where you're really going into detail, you can answer a lot of questions that might come up. Someone needs hours and hours of training, and you don't want to give that to a virtual sales assistant. So we always drew the line between step 1 and step 2. That's where you may want to do it. Like I said, maybe if you have that virtual sales assistant that's been with you for 6 months to a year, maybe you start getting them doing appointments. Who knows? But the key takeaway here is have them focus on step 1 either initially, and you can get someone competently doing step 1 with not a ton of knowledge transfer, at least using our methodology and our playbook. And so what I would do with my work at home agents is I would give them basically documents that would kind of tell them what to say, to be honest with you, in all different situations. So I would give them a call script. Their call script, and it would usually be around asking good questions. So one thing I kind of figured out with training these people was think about the product that you sell, okay? And think about teaching someone how to answer questions about your product, the pricing, how it works, how it's sold. It could take a lot of time to teach someone how to answer questions. But now think about how much time it takes to get someone to learn how to ask a set of questions. You can teach someone really quickly, these are the questions you need to ask, and a long time to answer questions. So the key there is if you're wanting to train someone really quickly, teach them what questions to ask. And what's really interesting is you're kind of hacking the system here, because you could have a virtual sales assistant that knows very little, and they're working for you on the first day that they work for you. And because you taught them what questions to ask, they're actually going to sound pretty good. They're going to sound maybe more sophisticated than the product selling pusher experienced salesperson out there that calls up someone and says, hey, I sell this, do you want to, do you guys need this? Your virtual assistant, might call up and say, hey, I'm checking to see how important is it for you guys to improve your website ranking on search engines. So they might not even know what that question means, but they know that that's the question you want them to ask. Now, but you might be thinking, well, Okay, well, what do they do with the response if they don't know what the question means? How are they going to follow up the answer? And the important thing here is actually, let me go back to the sales process. If your virtual assistant is doing prospecting, their goal is to schedule and get the prospect to step 2. So most times, regardless of what the prospect says, meaning if the prospect answers their question with a question like, well, I'm not sure, do you guys do this, which your virtual sales assistant has no idea what they're talking about, they can usually use that as an opportunity to go for their goal. So they get a question, or the conversation goes in a direction that they have no idea what's going on. They can always go, you know what, I'll be honest with you, I'm just the person that really is assigned with reaching out and starting the conversation with you. I'd like to connect you with the person that can answer that and go in more detail with you. Can I put a meeting on your calendar for Thursday morning, or does Friday afternoon work? So they get into an uh-oh moment, and then they're able to position, and actually that uh-oh moments lead to them getting their ultimate goal, which is setting an appointment or moving the prospect through the sales process. So they can get there pretty quickly. Just give them a list of questions to ask. The questions are usually central to their call script. Another thing that I would give my work at home agents is objection handling responses. You know, objections are going to come up for them, for you, for everybody, right? So it's interesting. When I was a salesperson, most of the sales jobs I worked in, and I worked for very sophisticated companies, they never taught me how to respond to objections. So I don't know. I kind of figured it out on my own, and But anyways, I gave my work at home agents. These are the objections you're going to come across. How do it takes too long to implement, you guys. We're not interested. We don't have any budget. We can't make any changes. When these come up, say this, and just have it on a piece of paper, for your people. I'd give them call scripts. I'd give them email templates. That being said, if you don't know by now, Sales Scripter does all of that. And before Sales Scripter existed, I basically would create all of that in Word documents and email those all to my work at home people. You can certainly do that. But if you like what I've discussed so far, so Sales Scripter will build all that out for you and allow you to either distribute it, you could download it and send it to your people, or your work at home agent can actually look at it through Sales Scripter. So this is like a document view of a call script, and as you can see, like central to it are here are your questions that you can have your virtual assistant asking. This is a sort of an interactive view, get to the key questions here. So this view kind of just isolates the key thing that they want to talk about at whatever particular time. You have your objection handling responses over here. Just send me some information. Here's the response you can have for them. And so this can be a tool that you can use to give your virtual assistant what to say. So this, in my opinion, is a game changer with hiring a virtual assistant. Without this, or without using a playbook, you're going to just like spend hours teaching them, all this stuff about your product. That's actually your natural instinct, is let me explain to you all the product. I mean, with my virtual assistants that worked at home, they knew very little about the client's products that they were working for. They just knew what questions to ask and what objection responses. So Sales Scripter also has your voicemail scripts as well for your virtual assistant. Another big thing is email templates. So here you go. If your virtual assistant is going to be doing prospecting, they're going to be sending emails. So here you go. Here are all the emails that they need to be sending when they're reaching out to people. They can send these directly through Sales Scripter as well if you create an account for them, and here load up their email information, and they can send the emails through here. They can see who's been clicking and opening emails and whatnot.